everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present. I'm honored to be a part of this conference, and although I would have liked to join you guys in person as well, unfortunately, I couldn't because of some visa delays. But it is what it is, and I'm still grateful for the opportunity to be able to join you guys remotely and be able to present. Today, I will be presenting my research, which is Rituals of the Wish, Reforming Luck and Identity in Genshin Impact's Gacha Culture. But before that, a quick introduction. Hello, my name is Alina QURESHI. I am a game dev and a game programmer who has roughly worked in the games industry for about 4 years, and I'm currently pursuing a master's in game design in Aalto University, Finland. I'm also a game enthusiast, and very important to this research, I have possibly the worst gacha luck in the history of mankind. So this topic is academically motivated, yes, but also maybe emotionally. Um, but moving forward. Now, if you played any gacha games, you may be familiar with the screen, or perhaps a variation of it. This is the animation that plays once you pull or roll in a banner. It is your attempt in trying your luck after working really hard and saving up your in-game currency. You might also be familiar with how hard yet addicting the cycle is. But then you see a screenshot like this, a win that is probabilistically and mathematically near impossible. And you see it again, and then you see it again. Unfortunately, I can confirm that these are not Photoshop. But then you decide to try your luck as well. So then you do. And what you get in the end is a debate club. Now, for non-Genshin players, think of this as weapon fodder. Things that you don't want, that you don't need, because you have like 200 of them already in your inventory. Um, and that proposes a question too, right? Like, what are these people doing right? What is something that you're clearly missing out on because your luck, or at least in this case, my luck, is really bad that I will always have to wait until hard pity to get something that I want. So as a new player, you would do a quick Google search and you will find yourself with many posts like this. Google search will tell you things like best places to pull for a 5 star or rituals to win your 50-50, or that you should go to this statue or this location at this time to maybe perform, to get the most out of your pulls. What's interesting here is not the mechanic itself, but what the players do around it here. Despite the fact that this is a probabilistic system, players develop and circulate ritualistic practices. And this raises a central question for me at least, and which is if the system is probabilistic, why do rituals emerge? Or rather, what functions do they serve? Um, there is a lot of existing literature on gacha systems, but a lot of them tend to focus on the monetization structures. They tend to focus on loot boxes and their comparison to gambling and gambling addiction, human psychology, and player retention. And these frameworks are really important and necessary. However, instead of viewing gacha as an economic system, my interest led me to consider them as a social phenomena, or rather to see if there was such a thing to begin with. Therefore, this study shifts focus towards gacha as a social phenomena and tries to view rituals as an affective economy. Therefore, rather rather than asking if rather than asking how gachas generate revenue, I ask, how do players generate meaning? This leads me to my research question, which is how do players transform probabilistic gacha pulls into emotional ritualized performances? Here, the things that I would rather consider would be where the players pull, how the players pull, who witnesses it, and what it means to them. And through these, we can figure out what kind of emerging trends that come out of these practices to begin with. The research method used in this study is qualitative digital ethnography. Here, the primary site is Reddit, specifically the very popular r/Genshin Impact. So comments, discussions, and threads about pulling and rituals were taken. Then a thematic coding was conducted to find out the emerging patterns between the ritual discourses. Um, what can we find from that? The goal was not to measure the prevalence of the belief, but rather to examine how these rituals were described, justified, and shared within the community space. So the data set that we're working with is 880 Reddit comments, um, spanning across 25 popular Reddit posts regarding rituals and threads and discussion like that. These would include descriptions of the rituals themselves. This would include emotional reactions that the player have. This would include community responses and explanations of success and failure and what you're doing wrong, what you should do, things like that. Out of those 880 comments, 305 of them had the keyword luck or ritual or anything related to that. So that was like extracted from them. That data was then further refined to filter out um, specifically comments that had intentional behavior, like that basically mentioned specifically about rituals themselves. So anything that was about like general, being lucky without mentioning the ritual pool, or they were just general habits that the players had were basically removed. And from that, then we have 193 comments at the end, which is about 22% of the original data set. The findings are as such. From these 193 comments, what we find out is the fact that the rituals can be divided into 6 main categories: location based, character related, behavioral, pull method, time based, and event based, and then others, and so on. So, location based is the most common one. This is when players frequently describing going to a particular place in game before they do the pull. These locations would include going to the characters' homes or areas that were associated with the character. They could also mean places where the characters were first introduced or anything that was more relevant to the story. They would also include community-defined special places. So, for example, one of the things that was the most recurrent space was the Barbados statue in Mondstadt. These are places that are defined by the community as special because of just how many times that people have been reinforcing the belief. Then there is character-related rituals. These are rituals that involve in-game characters. Most prominently, this would mean having a thematic team composition. What that implies is that, for example, if the character is that you're summoning is from Inazuma, then your team would have all the characters from Inazuma if you had that many. Um, this would also mean sacrificing other characters, most commonly Bennett or Chi-Chi, sadly. Um, and then there's behavioral ritual methods. Behavioral ritual methods is how the players would actually act while or during the time that they're pulling. This would mean looking away from the phone or not even like engaging with it, pretending disinterest because apparently the gacha gods will reward you with that. This is, for example, more interestingly, asking somebody else to pull for you because you are cursed on this person, or this person is more lucky than you, so therefore ask them to do that. And then there's other types, which is time-based events for you changing the in-game time to midnight or a specific time that was relevant to the character, and also event-based, so related to their birthday or your birthday, and so on, like any specific special dates. Interestingly enough, out of the 193 comments, 58 of them actually reported the outcome of said rituals as well. 50 of them were positive, which is the fact that they confirmed that this ritual indeed worked. 8 of them were negative, which is interesting because then you see the strong reporting bias where players are more likely to share the success stories than they are the failures. It makes failure less visible, and therefore these success narratives reinforce this perceived legitimacy of the rituals. Interestingly enough, also, the early pity wins are disproportionately represented in these discussions again, tied to the rituals themselves. So there's always this echo chamber of, oh, because this, because these are the most prevalent discussions that you see, therefore this must be true. Just statistically, by sheer amount that you see, the negatives versus the positives. Through this data, 4 distinct belief systems can also be categorized. These are players that view rituals as either causality, coping, performance, or meaningless. Players who see rituals as causality are players who genuinely believe that these rituals have some form or some extent of effect or impact on the probability of your goals. So, language that are used in these comments are, oh, it works for me, or every time I pull here, I win, or that this never fails me, and things like that. Then there's rituals for coping. Now, these are players that may or may not believe that the rituals actually work, but that's not what they do it for. They do it to regain emotional control. They do it because it's not the ritual chaining probability that matters, it's how it makes them feel. And so it makes them feel like they have some sort of sense of control here, and therefore that's why they do it. There's rituals as performances. This is most commonly viewed or seen in people that stream or have an audience that view them as they play. These are players or live stream, like that can be live streamers or any other form of like social media content creators, and how they use rituals is for the dramatics. So pull becomes a spectacle, luck becomes content, there's drama involved, there's disappointment, and there's the rush of anticipation, and so on. And then there's people who view rituals as meaningless, and these are people who explicitly deny the efficacy of the rituals and reject it completely and believe in just the RNG or the probability table. Um, but yeah, through these findings, we can these findings suggest that the rituals in Gacha culture is not primarily or not necessarily about misunderstanding probability. It could also be about managing uncertainty. Across the data sets, the rituals functioned as psychological comfort. They provide a sense of control. It was a means of shared storytelling and experiences. It was a form of entertainment and community to a lot of people. And of course, to some, it was a form of coping mechanism as well, because, how their luck could be. So even though the rituals have no causal effect on the outcome, they still have some significant social effect because they transform the randomness into a narrative. Um, and therefore, gacha systems can, or at least in this case, can be seen as more of an emotional infrastructure as well. Through the rituals, players turn these probabilistic systems into symbolic spaces, structured performances, and so on. Um, so even though these are fully transparent RNG systems, these rituals still emerge, not because the players misunderstand the probability, but perhaps because humans construct meaning out of the uncertainty of the situation. Finally, there are some limitations to this research as well. It does not claim universality. It offers a focused examination on one of the community spaces. However, because there is still um, limitations to it because of the sample size as well. The other limitations are because it's limited to one platform right now, which is Reddit. Ideally, in the future, we would hope to expand this more onto other more prevalent platforms where the Genshin Impact community is more prevalent, like Discord and so on. And of course, it is to acknowledge the fact that all of these comments were in the English language, and therefore there may be some differences depending on the language spoken by the community as well. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions or even feedback, or if you'd like to debate with me if your luck is worse than mine, please, I would be more than happy to talk about it. You can scan the QR code on the screen, um, and you can contact me there on my socials. And thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to share my work with you. Bye bye.